belly dance. I've been getting a lot of questions recently about arm and hand movements, so I wanted to spend a few videos concentrating on that for those of you who are interested in learning more about the finer details of arm and hand movements. So today I'd like to talk about two different ideas, the hand wave and the wrist circle. It's one of these things that's such a tiny, subtle detail that we often overlook as dancers. We're so busy thinking about the hips and the belly that we forget the hands, and they're so incredibly expressive and so very detailed and so incredibly muscular. I think you'll find if you do these drills and work on these movements, they'll really add a lot of detail to your dance. They'll add a lot of expression to your dance. So let's look at the hand wave. I'm going to do this with both hands to begin with, though when you practice, maybe starting with just one at a time might be good. The hand wave is literally a wave of the hand. But what we're going to work on today is the idea that you want all of the muscles in your hand to be involved in this movement. So the biggest thing that I see that can really get this off to a good start is this sort of hyperextension of the fingers. So when I lift my wrist, what does not happen is this, the fingers point down, which is kind of a more natural reaction to this lift of the wrist. Elbows in place, shoulders in place, no lifting here. We're looking at wrist down to the fingers. Lifting the wrist, extending. So I feel this all the way through the back of my hand. I feel energy shooting out my fingers. I feel like I'm casting some sort of magic spell or something. So all of this energy coming out of the fingers, lifting the wrist, pushing the wrist down, fingers relaxing slightly, and then imagining this happening on the other side, sort of a more concave nature. And you're pushing now. So that same hyperextension, that same engagement of the muscles through the back of the hand, and now you're pushing, like pushing your handprint into something really, kind of hard but smoochy underneath. You're really pushing with some force down. Lifting again and pushing. So I'm creating this hand wave that involves just this lower part of my arm. But when I really do this with muscular intention, I can really feel it. Like it's pretty serious in the back of my hand here. So lifting the wrist, extending through the fingers, waving through. We'll try that on the other side here. So same idea here. Lifting, extending, feeling all of that energy shooting out of the fingertips. Elbows relaxed, shoulders are relaxed. Lifting and pushing. Waving through like you're pushing your hand into a mold, a cement mold, and you need to push every single piece of it in there, right? So if we do both hands, and we think about really utilizing all the muscles in there, we can get a really beautiful element here. And then of course we can take this movement anywhere. We can offset this, travel up. I'm adding a little shoulder roll here. We can do this up above the head. I like to think of this as like a big, beautiful doorway, right? So from here, bringing the arms up and hand waving down. Thinking of those fingers engaging with each other as they come down. Alternating hand waves here beneath me, in front of the face. Doing that door frame again. Or tracing a little path in front of me. All with that hand wave. So another thing that you can add onto this hand wave or use separately is the idea of a wrist circle. Now, when I say a wrist circle, I'm going to be really specific and say it is your wrist that is circling and not your fingers. So this is something that I see all the time with dancers because it's subtle. It's a subtle difference, but it makes a huge difference when you really look at the movement. Like with floreos, this wrist circle is similar, but a little bit different. We're going to think about circling around with the wrist. So if I were to grab my fingers and not allow them to move, my wrist is circling, but my fingers are staying fairly centered, right? My fingers react a little bit. There's going to be a little bit of a wave, so that's why this wrist circle and the hand wave are very interrelated. But this circle of the wrist is truly a circle of the wrist. So the up and down, we worked with the hand wave, right? Up, hyperextension in the fingers. Down, imagine those fingers still pointing straight forward. One nice way to practice it is to put it on the mirror or on the wall. Lift the wrist, push the wrist down. Lift the wrist, push it down. Don't allow those fingers to collapse down, right? Because when you let them collapse down, what you end up getting is a finger circle, which is pretty, but it doesn't have the same oomph as a wrist circle, which is a lot more muscular, right? We've got the up and down, and then the side to side. So this is really good for your hands and your wrists. If you have any wrist issues, of course, if anything is painful, don't do it, modify, right? But I find that the side to side is a real challenge. When you put it all together, we've got down, we've got side, we've got up, and the other side. I'm creating a tiny little circle in my wrist. Fingers are reacting. What I'm getting is like a little mini wave of my hand as I circle around. Hyperextension and release. Hyperextension and release. Try the other hand. So you have your up and your down and your side to side. Side to side, we're thinking about keeping the hands active, keeping the fingers pointing forward, using that mirror or the wall to remind us that we want the fingers to remain steady and not to scoop down. Side to side. And circling around. So similar idea, where do you take these circles? You can take them in both directions. And getting the wave through. Wrist circle, hand wave. Door frame. At the side, these hand waves to accentuate movements like the Maya. Wrist circles. The wrist is circling. Here's my wrist circle. Here's a finger circle. Different feel. The wrist is no longer engaged. The fingers are relaxed. Wrist circle. Frame. Hand wave. And wrist circle. Other way. So those are two hand accents that you can put on the top of any beautiful belly dance arm movement that you already know to create a little bit more emotion and fluidity. Thank you so much for joining me.